Registered Phenomena Code 758. Object Class Gamma Purple. Hazard Types: Aggression, Grouped, Invisibility, Sapient, Transmutation, Emotional, Mind Regression, Incorporeal. Containment Protocols. All instances of RPC-758 must be tattooed with Bitteric sigils. A ceremonial sigil composition, named after the Bitteric class of drugs. It makes RPC-758 instances visible, and was historically used by RPC-758 tribes to contact human societies. Aggressive instances are to be contained in a sanitized containment chamber, paneled with Himalayan salt. Docile instances are to be contained in a standard humanoid compartment cell, with minimal luxuries. Classical and gospel church music are played continuously for tranquilization purposes. At least 5 religious, spiritual items, such as crucifixes, talismans, and/or beads, are to be placed inside the containment cell per instance. The items must be of cultural significance to the RPC-758 species' culture of origin. Feeding will be done once per week, with CSD-class personnel wearing the AHA-3 Holy Armor System. The Anti-Hex Body Armor System Version 3, AHA-3, informally named the Holy Armor, is the third incarnation of the Anti-Thaumaturgic Armor System. Once RPC-758 is done feeding, the CSD-class personnel must report for immediate psychological diagnosis and possible treatment if necessary. All personnel stationed at RPC-758 must follow strict hygienic and dietary practices. Per supervision of the Office of Ethics, the culture around sites containing RPC-758 must demonstrate a healthy work environment. As RPC-758 is repelled by the concept of love and friendship, personnel are encouraged to display friendly interaction with one another. Adequate knowledge of the practice of exorcism will be required of all staff working with or next to RPC-758. Personnel of the Abrahamic faith are required to carry crucifixes if they are of a Christian denomination, or a bottle of honey and water if they are of the Islamic faith. If the RPC-758 instance is non-Abrahamic of origin, it may be exorcised according to the practices of the regional culture. Subjects showing symptoms of RPC-758-A must meet with medical staff for treatment immediately. Therapy sessions will be compensated for. A specialized liptocitarine drug was made to magnify the stimulative effect of RPC-758-C and help affected subjects recover. Media and products that may shallowly be considered satanic are banned. Strictly prohibited contents include, but are not limited to, music and rock, metal, rap, blues, and other similar genres. Any film depicting acts of violence, substance abuse, uses of profanity, or sexual content. Young adult and romance novels. The Harry Potter series. Dungeons & Dragons, and other similar tabletop games. The Pokémon franchise, and other JRPGs. Tarot cards, Ouija boards, and other similar games. Pornography. Alcohol, tobacco, cannabis, and other drugs that aren't medically prescribed. Non-religious philosophical texts. Expanded list available upon request. Any surplus of RPC-758 is to be disposed of. Any and all instances of RPC-758-1 outside of authority or intergovernmental custody must be eliminated through any means necessary. The termination of such entities will require authority-issued anti-thaumaturgical instruments. MST Echo 25, Dreaded Out, are assigned to eliminate any reported instances of RPC-758. Specializes in containing and terminating undead or supernatural entities. Description: Anatomy: RPC-758 designates a genus of semi-incorporeal humanoid parasites with a loosely bio-sulfuric makeup. RPC-758 instances are invisible to the naked eye, but can be viewed via tattooed sigils, rituals, Bitteric-class drugs, etc. RPC-758 have no digestive system, respiratory system, nor reproductive system. Instead, an intricate mass of what appears to be fat, sulfuric compound, and neuron cells replicating the aforementioned systems take its place. The mass is theorized to operate as metabolism. RPC-758 gains sustenance through negative human emotions, feeding and gaining mass through anomalous means. Emotions aren't clearly defined, as RPC-758 cannot feed on hormones and brainwave signals. Description: Anatomy: RPC-758 designates a genus of semi-incorporeal humanoid parasites with a loosely bio-sulfuric makeup. RPC-758 instances are invisible to the naked eye, but can be viewed via tattooed sigils, rituals, Bitteric-class drugs, etc. Different species of RPC-758 will prefer different emotional states to feed on, all of which revolve around human suffering. Behavior characteristics: Contemporary culture norms influence the physical and mental health of RPC-758. Notions that are branded as satanic by large groups of people become another source of sustenance for the entities. RPC-758 instances that are participating in and/or are near satanic objects, such as tarot cards or death metal albums, will exhibit higher aggression, strength, and productivity. Inversely, RPC-758 is repelled by positive human emotions and concepts such as love, empathy, joy, etc. Exposure to these virtues will weaken the instance, and in enough quantity, terminate them. RPC-758 had developed a diverse culture, prominently revolving around mischief and hatred towards humanity. See Addendum 758-A1, Species and Culture. Intellectually, RPC-758 is found to possess roughly human-level intelligence. IQ test results estimate their intellect from 50 to 70 points. However, some outliers have demonstrated possessing an IQ point above 1. Despite their relatively low intellect, RPC-758 instances demonstrate a substantial understanding of complex thaumaturgical arts, particularly alchemy. It can transfigure alchemical constructions out of its own body parts, most of which exhibit minor anomalous properties. See Addendum 758-A2, Anomaly Constructions. Another talent present within the entire genus is a sophisticated understanding of sigil composition and creation, which they can use to brand intricate spells onto objects to exhibit anomalous properties. Life cycle: RPC-758 are parasites dependent on humans that continue their life cycle, starting with locating a human host. Although preferences vary, most RPC-758 instances choose their host by their looks. The life cycle of the genus can be seen below. Stage 1. RPC-758 will search for a human subject to infect. Once it finds a perfect host, it will follow them. RPC-758 will send its host subliminal messages, amplifying the subject's instinctive drive and impulse to commit morally ill actions. If the subject is able to refrain from pursuing their desire, RPC-758 will leave in search of another host. Stage 2. After 2 to 4 weeks, RPC-758 will have successfully conceived its offspring in its host. An embryo, made of neural oscillation, designated RPC-758-A, materializes inside its host's central nervous system. For the next 2 months, the RPC-758-A embryo is stagnant. Stage 3. 2 months after infection, RPC-758-A will feed on its host's continual psychological deterioration. The host will develop mental disorders, reminiscent of GAD, and/or major depressive episodes. Generalized anxiety disorder. The subject will develop focal seizures, which will worsen over time. Stage 4. After 3 months of being infected, RPC-758A will damage the subject's right prefrontal cortex, prefrontal, and to RPC-758B is a hallucinatory projection of both the subject's instinctual desire for immediate pleasure, as well as RPC-758A's subliminal messages. Subjects with stronger willpower and/or a healthier psychological status will manifest the entity, designated RPC-758C, the fight against the RPC-758A parasite. RPC-758C is a hallucinatory projection of the subject's internalization of moral agency. RPC-758C is recounted to appear like, quote, a tiny little angel, unquote, affirming to the subject's moral conscience. If the subject were to follow RPC-758C's directions consistently, the RPC-758A parasite will eventually starve and expire. However, if the subject ignores RPC-758C, they will inevitably follow into RPC-758A's craving to its eventual birth. Stage 5. After 4 months, the subject can no longer prevent RPC-758 from being born. Subjects will experience excruciating pain as their nervous system collapses into each other to form a new organism. The subject will then vomit out a mixture of blood, fat, and neuron cells, which will slowly morph into a fully developed RPC-758 instance. The subject at this point would have either expired from shock or undergo brain death. RPC-758 will grow up until it reaches adulthood at 7 years old. The average lifespan of RPC-758 instances is 50 years. Addendum 758A1 Species and Culture. RPC-758 is the most abundant and widespread genus of bioapparitions. Currently, there are 178 known species of RPC-758, each with a unique set of behavior and characteristics. While RPC-758 is sexless, some species, such as the alder elf, RPC-758-2, have gendered physiques, which implies the existence of sexual dimorphism among RPC-758. Sexual dimorphism is a condition where the sexes of the same species exhibit different characteristics. The purpose of this separation is societal, as RPC-758 generally have similar gender roles as humans. RPC-758 are highly social and territorial beings, with an affinity for hierarchical society. Their tools, culture, and language are borrowed directly from human societies. They are just as likely to fight an interspecies conflict as they are with fighting humans. RPC-758 are prone to believe in religions of Abrahamic origins, but due to their satanic nature, they are impaired from practicing it. Instead, RPC-758 practice shamanism, the occult, and in some instances, sects of the Nihil faith. The list below details the description and behavioral characteristics of the 5 most common RPC-758 species, archived in 1954. Outdated information will be colored gray. RPC-758-1 Registered Code 758-1 Informal Designate Red Imp Region North Africa, Europe, Western Asia, America. Number contained 7. Object Description: the masculine Red Imp appears quite similar to our modern depiction of a stereotypical devil. The primary masculine Red Imp has animalistic features that can easily be compared to existing animals. Their horns and tails, for example, match up with the horns of bovides, such as the American bison or the impala. These animalistic traits, however, are purely an aesthetic display, serving no function to the imp's day-to-day life. Other notable anatomical features are its red skin and naturally long fingernails. Behavioral characteristics. Culturally, the Red Imp is highly aggressive towards humans, leaving no second thought to attack humans on sight unless they're looking for a host to infect. This nature isn't determined by their inherited psychology, but rather the very sects of Christianity's attitude towards devils as a whole. The Red Imps have two violently opposing divides in their beliefs, one being theistic Satanism, and the other being the worship of the savage redness deity. Umbrella term for religious groups that consider Satan to be an objectively existing deity. Addendum: The Red Crusade. Red Imps can be found in many parts of the known world. They primarily reside in religiously Christian nations like Greece, Hungary, Ethiopia, etc., as they make up 66% of the known RPC-758 population. It is safe to say they are the most common species of RPC-758. Since the Red Crusade, the population has been reduced to 32%. Since the 19 incident, the Red Imps have proven themselves to be one of humanity's great hazards. The Authority and other intergovernmental agencies have declared against the Nulamala Concord and the entire RPC-758-1 species. RPC-758-2 Registered Code 758-2 Informal Designate Alder Elf Region Germanic Regions Number contained 122 Object Description: The Alder Elf are more comparable to fairies of European folktales than a devil. Their name comes from the coloration of their skin, which is pale like the bark of an alder tree. Their antlers are shaped like an alder tree's branch as well. Though sexless, these Devilfolks come in both a masculine and feminine form, which is determined by the sex of their former host. Informal Designate for the RPC-758 genus. The two physiques are vastly different from one another, which stands in stark contrast to other RPC-758 species that have gendered forms. The masculine Alder Elf is goblin-like in appearance. Its face can only be described as a grotesque exaggeration of the male form. It also has a naturally abdominous body, perhaps to keep itself warm during the winter season. The feminine instances, meanwhile, are distinctly human-like in appearance. Besides their invisibility, they can differentiate by their horns and skin discoloration. The masculine instances are infatuated by jewelry, while the feminine ones have an affinity for flowers. Behavioral characteristics. By RPC-758 standards, this species is relatively passive towards humans. They only opt to attack us if provoked. While the Red Imps are fueled by humanity's hatred for demons, the Alder Elves are based on Europe's fear of fairies and witches. There are many reports of Alder Elves stealing human children to eat them, or raise them as their own. Addendum: Red Crusade. The Alder Elves have become a useful ally to the Authority and other European agencies in the against the Red Imps. Approximately 1,000 anti-thaumaturgic weaponry were commissioned out of Alder Elf communities to aid us in our crusade. RPC-758-3 Registered Code 758-3 Informal Designate Red Goblin Region Eastern Asia, Southeast Asia Number contained 165 Description: Object Description: The dominantly masculine Red Goblin is an umbrella term for the various RPC-758 species residing in Eastern Asia, such as the Korean Dokebi, the Chinese Wangliang, and the Japanese Tengu. There are no set defining characteristic for Red Goblins, which, despite its name, comes in a diverse set of skin coloration. This species of RPC-758 sports a heterogeneous body shape, culture, and extra animalistic feature. Behavioral characteristics. In general, Red Goblins don't hold the same level of disdain for humanity compared to other RPC-758 species. While other Devilfolks sustain themselves from making human subjects suffer the consequences of their moral obscenity. Red Goblins extract human suffering through mischievous pranks. These pranks are far from harmless, ramifying in permanent injury and even death. The Red Goblin's main source of sustenance is pain. Red Goblins as a whole are more concerned with interspecies conflict than humanity itself. It isn't uncommon to see 1-8 humans gain the upper hand against other RPC-758 tribes. The Abrahamic religions, while effective, have a lower damage rate against the Red Goblins because they base their identity on Eastern religions such as Buddhism, Hinduism, Sikhism, and Confucianism. Addendum: The Red Crusade. The Red Goblins have been a useful ally to some Eastern agencies with their against the Red Imps. The PLASD has managed to assimilate many Red Goblin tribes into their operations. The success of such collaborations are still up to debate. The People's Liberation Army Special Directorate, a direct predecessor of PCAAO. RPC-758-4 Registered Code 758-4 Informal Designate White Nymph Region: Eastern Europe, Western Asia. Number contained: 48. Object Description: The feminine White Nymph is the most human-like both biologically and in appearance out of all 120+ known species. They appear like any human female, except with the horn and tail of a capra, and slight discoloration of their pale skin. Folks have described white nymphs to be beautiful or horrifyingly grotesque. The White Nymph has the most physically defined structure out of any RPC-758 instances, and thus can be harmed by conventional weapons instead of just anti-thaumaturgic instruments. This also means the birthing process for white nymphs are a lot more painful because their host has to throw up more of their body mass to accommodate for the white nymph's biological structure. Behavioral characteristics: These Devilfolks are quite hedonistic, preying on both Devilfolk and humans alike for self-indulgence. This act is the White Nymph's oblation to patron gods. White Nymphs rely on women to host their offspring, resulting in the newly born instances looking eerily similar to their host. They display aggression for humanity on men and children. The White Nymph's main sustenance is the emotion of melancholy. RPC-758-5 Registered Code 758-5 Informal Designate Ashgul Region: Southern Asia, Middle East. Number contained: 13. Object Description: The Ashgul of the Middle East are genetically the oldest species of RPC-758. They have both a masculine and feminine form, which are only slightly different in skeletal structure. They sport the appearance of a mummified primate, with short stubby horns and no tail. Structurally, they are almost completely incorporeal, more similar to an apparition than an organism. They inhabit desolate places far from human contact. As a result of their scarce environment, they are frail and blind, only bothering to move when they accidentally stumble upon a human subject. Behavioral characteristics: It isn't clear what negative emotion the Ashgul feeds on. Some theorize they directly gain sustenance of the suffering of their own species. The concept of ghouls and the undead have long since been forgotten in Islamic communities in the Middle East. Their stronger devotion to faith has led to the permanent degeneration of the Ashgul species. RPC-758-6 Registered Code 758-6 Alt Registration Pending Informal Designate Sulfur Posses Region: South Africa, Europe, East Asia, America. Number contained: 23. Object Description: The Sulfur Posses are a unique strain of RPC-758, as it possesses a reproductive cycle entirely different from other RPC-758 species. Rather than physique, the Sulfur Posses are separated by sex. The Sulfur Posses takes the appearance of a skinned human corpse, with a diverse set of animalistic horns. Its sweat glands produce sulfur smoke to disorient prey and escape predators. Despite being non-Euclidean, the sulfur posses have a corporeal biological structure. Behavioral characteristics. The sulfur posses reproduces by infecting humans with a special strand of RPC-758A, which morphs them into the RPC-758-6 species. After conversion, they will partake in self-indulgences to violent extremes. While the species are adept at sigil composition, they lack the logical capacity or the alchemic arts. Their main source of faith is theistic Satanism. Addendum. Redesignation. After thorough research, it was discovered the sulfur posses are from a different family of bio-apparition, and are genetically separate from RPC-758. RPC-758-6 is to be redesignated to RPC-216. Interview Log RPC-758-1-33-A2 Interviewed RPC-758-1-33 Interviewer Dr. Henry Staggers Forward RPC-758-1-33 is an RPC-758-1 instance. Several attempts have been made to communicate with them, which has proven to be difficult due to its stubborn nature. Begin Log September 16, 2004 3:04 RPC-758-33-A2 Good morning, RPC-758-1-33. You again? Yes, I'm here to ask a few questions about your kind. Oh, sure. Alright, sure. Ask ahead. Any question. We want to know why your kind holds so much hate for humanity. Excuse me? You think I was fucking serious about answering your questions? I don't want to hear a word from your annoying voice ever again. RPC-758-1-33. Might I remind you, I'm the one in charge here. You can't hide behind those screens forever, motherfucker. I'm gonna break that window and shove my… ASF guards point their bayonets at RPC-758-1-33. Bitch, you think I'm afraid of death? Refrain yourself, 33, or else we will have to shoot you down. I will make you shit me back out of that miserable brain of yours. Not like losing half your brain will make much of a difference anyways. Make any sudden movements and you're gone. Sit down and answer my questions. Then you may eat. Go fuck yourself. RPC-758-33 lunges towards Dr. Kendrick. ASF guard terminates RPC-758-1-33. I need another check. He might have stuck another parasite on me. End log. September 16th, 2004. 3:07. RPC-758-33-A2. Closing statement. The interview is deemed a failure. Further attempts to interview an RPC-758-1 instance are discouraged after the incident. Interview Log RPC-758-2-54-C1 Interviewed RPC-758-2-54 Interviewer Dr. Henry Staggers Forward After the failed interview, Dr. Staggers searched for docile instances to interview instead. Begin Log September 17th, 2004 1500 RPC-758-2-54 Good morning, RPC-758-2-54. But, to the evening, is it? Alright. Good evening. Please sit down. I want to ask you a few questions. Okay. Your kind has an affinity for hating humanity. I want to know why it is. I ask you this first. In the womb, what does the unborn child feed on? Well, the fetus gains nourishment and oxygen through the umbilical cord. consuming whatever nutrition its mother eats in its placenta. Okay. You see, the placenta provides nourishment, and… I meant, the baby eats through the mother. Correct. But the devil child feeds on its human spears, hatred, sadness instead. A newborn will meet the loving embrace of its mother, but a devil child will only see the anguish of its dying human. Is it any wonder why our hate is so ingrained in our being? Our entire flesh is made of all of man's ills. That's a nice way to articulate it. That's because I'm wise, unlike the other Devilfolks. You certainly are a lot smarter than the other instances. Do you have any other questions? No, we're very much finished. Do I get anything out of this? Do you have any requests? Are you aware of Devil's Thrill Santana by Giuseppe Tartini? The Devil's violinist, isn't he? That song has a high sustenance rate, but as a reward for your consistently good behavior, I'll make an exception. Thank you. You older elves are a lot friendlier than the red imps. But forget not, beware not of the wolf that shows their teeth in a snarl that keeps its prey always aware, but the fox hides its fangs, pretending to smile. Right. End log. September 17th, 2004, 1500. RPC-758-2-54. Closing statement. RPC-758-2-54 was only allowed to listen to Giuseppe Tartini, Devil's Thrill Santana, for 2 minutes, before it was intercepted by gospel music. Under Dr. Stagger's request, ASF personnel were to patrol around RPC-758-2-54 cell for the next 12 hours. Addendum 758-A2 Anomaly Constructions. Note: the table below is a list of weapons commonly used by RPC-758 tribes. Code Number: Object: Property: A1KF 10 Pitchfork. Object is self-nullified. Its tip is perpetually burning. Common thaumaturgic property, which makes an object molecularly indestructible. A1CH 10 Spear. Object is self-nullified. Its lance, despite being dull, can cut through materials as tough as steel. A1OC 10 Flintlock Pistol. Shots from item can vaporize organic material, but it can only be used 3 times before becoming too unstable to use. A2MB Iron Electric Guitar. Vibration made by the guitar strings can reach decibels over 170 decibels, which is enough to rupture eardrums. A3JJ Mercury Hand Grenade. Object is self-nullified, making it impossible to detonate. A3UV Mercury Grenade Launcher. Triggering the object will release a kiloton shooting at a velocity of km/h². A3UV Mercury Barlow Bomb. Releasing the object at a height of meters will a kiloton explosion, turning the blood vessels of surrounding into A5PQ Sulfur Chainsaw. Object has a perpetual energy source. It is able to run indefinitely. List of RPC-758 sigil composite weaponry. Note: the table below is a list of weapons forcibly extracted out of RPC-758 during 1952 Red Crusade. Code Number: Object: Property: S10I Trumpet. Blowing the object will exert a sound as loud as 100+ decibel. S1BJ Violin. Playing one note on the object can slow the auditory of RPC-758 instances. A full symphony is enough to kill an RPC-758 instance. S1TB Flute. Playing a single note on the object will control the and RPC-758 instances. Long-term exposure to it can lead to its target bursting into a S2MR. Leather gloves. When worn, certain hand gestures can be used to a pyrokinetic S3BU. Steel longsword. Object is self-nullified. It is able to weaken RPC-758 instances within a 10-meter circumference. Object is an RPC-758 sustenance source %. The potency of the median satanic media. S4OG. Lanchester submachine gun. Bullets fired from the object displays anti-thaumaturgic properties, making it an effective weapon against RPC-758 instances. Object is laced with radiation of approximately 8,000 rotogens, delivering a 50-50 lethal dose of radiation within 5 minutes. S4BY. Browning automatic rifle. The true property of this object is unknown. S4QA. Anti-tank rifle. The true property of this object is unknown. S5DD. 80mm gun. The true property of this object is unknown. S5BU. Crusader tank. The true property of this object is unknown. The Authority is no longer permitted to extract weapons from RPC-758. Addendum 758-B1 Demon Storm Incident. During the on January 1916, approximately instances of RPC-758- was out of the bodies of the created one entity known by the RPC-758- instances as the. This event is known as the Demon Storm Incident. The Demon Storm Incident, 1916. March 31st, 1958. I write this message for my series of writings in opposition to G.D. War's final stand against the Nulamala in Arabia. All too many have asked me what the Demon Storm Incident exactly was. Everyone deserves to know the truth of what happened on that very day, so that history will not repeat. It all began in the Great War. After the disastrous campaign, the Ottomans looked to occultism to gain any advantage they can muster. They would end up allying with a Red Imp tribe called the Nulamala for weapons. In exchange, the Ottomans offered them human sacrifices. Those poor souls were prisoners of war and innocent Armenians who would become prey to the devils. Their new weapons truly were something extraordinary. Iron trumpets, which can deafen ears. Muskets that can vaporize men. I remember watching a Mercury missile drop into an enemy formation, and gasp as those men melt into molten iron. Enemies of the Ottoman began to fear our weapons, and especially the Nulamala. While the existence of Devilfolks was common knowledge, it wasn't known yet they grew with hatred. They demonized us, which only made the Nulamala stronger and their weapons deadlier. New instruments of war will be produced, leading to our enemies hating us even more, and thus strengthening the Red Imps. This cycle of hate continued on and on. It seemed like there was no limit to how powerful a Devilfolk can be. This cycle reached a crescendo on January 30th, 1916. I saw it with my own eyes. Soldiers from both sides halting fire, as unwavering dread succumbs their souls. They were unaware their true enemies were invisible, that the weapons they hold were feeding off every ounce of hate, anger, frustration, desire. Then they began frantically shooting blindly, hundreds dying from stray bullets, as disillusioned soldiers tried to fight what they saw as demons crawling around their bodies. After that, they vomited blood, fat, pieces of their own brain. The battlefield glowed red, drowning grain of sand with blood. It all molded into one, the Red King of all devils. It rained Earth for 2 minutes before collapsing into its own body from its weight. In that short amount of time, I counted its heartbeat. 1, 2, 3. It beat its heart 306 times. By the time it stopped beating, 26,000 men became all but blood. The city was all covered in red, as the voice of 1,000 invisible infants cried on what remained of those bodies. I was one of the few men who survived. During the battle, I was praying with a group of Armenian soldiers. I told them God will protect us in our fight against the Russians, and we just needed to trust Him. All things will be well. That simple prayer, an act of love and duty, shielded us from the Red King. They've been following me ever since. Every temptation I ever make, every suffering I had to endure. Invisible be they may, but I knew they're here, feeding off of me till the day I become one of them. I can't let this happen to anyone ever again. We can't let another king reign this earth. Former GD-07, Eurasia, 1922 to 1926. It is suggested that this incident sparked the population boom of RPC-758 instances, which would later become more prevalent in during an event known as the Red Crusade.